inspired, fired up, and on the move. Yeah, 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 yeah. From all the places and all the races, arm in arm now, upon our feet. Yeah, 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 yeah. From all the schools and all the homes, it's time to take it. It's time to take it to the street.
Gonna get militant up in here. Hello, once again, friends, and welcome to this week's episode of The Call, the program that calls you to action, whether it's direct action or advocacy or organizing or educating. We have special guests that come on and just help you to become empowered and inspired so that we can do what? Change our communities, change our nation, and change our world. And this week's guest is none other than Lindsay Harper, the National Coordinator for Arm in Arm, which is a campaign of U.S. Climate Action Network. And so we've known Lindsay for quite a while, and she always puts a smile on your face. And I just want to say, welcome, Lindsay, to the call.
Thank you, Roger. I appreciate you. I am glad to be here today.
Yes, yes, and so much is going on, and you're always so busy that I'm glad that we were able to catch up with you. You're one of those people. It seems like you live on Zoom, doesn't it?
Rev, I'm trying to be like you.
How's
Wait,
that?
you know what? Wait, maybe I should not be like you because I know you live on Zoom too.
Yeah, yeah. I start to say no. You don't want to do that.
Yes,
But
no, there is a whole lot going on. We've got Arm in Arm has a lot of exciting things coming up for our summer season of actions, and so yeah, I'm excited to share some about that today with you.
okay, wonderful. Well, look, why don't we do this? Why don't we talk about how you came to the movement and how you became involved with U.S. Climate Action Network, and let folks know exactly, what is U.S. Climate Action Network and what's its place in the global scheme of things.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was a lot of questions. If you missed one, I'll remind you.
Thank you. I will do my best. I will set them up and knock them down. So in the beginning, where I started now. So I'm second generation environmental justice and civil rights. My grandmother on my dad's side was the first Black teacher at Central High in Little Rock.
Mhm.
And my mom, the reason we actually moved to Atlanta was because she was a Black attorney who was hired over at the Environmental Protection Agency. And I learned about environmental justice from my mom, like as a child. Now that I'm older, I understand where she was going when she was going to very small towns around the Southeast,
Mhm.
speaking with community, hearing about their problems. These are environmental justice communities. These are communities near brownfields. These are communities that have real, true environmental harms from private industry close by. So I've understood from a long time that industry hurts people. They have money to make and they will choose money over people. And also being raised in Atlanta, Georgia, one of the best decisions my folks ever made was down to Atlanta. But truly though, being a Black woman raised in the South, I mean, it comes with a vision and ability to see the world in a way that is just authentic and takes away a lot of the niceties and the layers we like to try and put on stuff. I feel as though I'm able to see things for what they are, and it has benefited me in my life and being able to really perceive what the real challenges and issues are and being able to navigate around them. And in this instance, when it comes to climate and climate change, environmental justice, economic justice, it looks like our extractive energy economy. It looks like, profits over people.
Mhm.
It looks like places in the South, South Carolina too, southeastern region, dirty infrastructure. Our region has been designated as a trash can, and so I understand what that means. I understand the various players where they are standing. For instance, my mom was working for EPA. She was inside of the government. I'm standing doing similar work, but standing on the nonprofit side, right? So, but still working to achieve the same goal, which is people having a healthy, clean environment and clean jobs and having enough to thrive more than survive.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the short version of my origin story.
Yeah.
I will say that I am a Howard University graduate, Bison. So yeah, all that stuff that comes along with my my activist upbringing. Uh, I came to USCAN as a member of an organization. I once worked with Georgia WAN, Georgia Women's Action for New Directions. Really had a really excellent education there and really grassroots organizing and a real true economic and racial analysis of the country as far as having a militarized economy versus a civilian economy, one where we sink a lot of money into weapons and into dirty industry and into private industry profits over people, but what that really looks like on the local level in Georgia, having the first new nuclear energy construction facility in 40 years, prison industrial complex, you know, people having energy burden, people having really high energy bills. All of these things are all connected to white supremacy. They're all connected to systemic racism and deciding that some people are more valuable than others, and therefore we can devalue this particular area, people, group in order to get the most value for ourselves. With that education, I was able to really, I feel, be able to contribute to where USCAN, US Climate Action Network, is going on where they're looking to go, which is really to get behind and to get behind frontline groups and communities, work together as in concert, groups from all around the spectrum, to get towards a climate win that's done with justice, centering racial and economic justice. And I was fortunate enough to be part of a group called the Organizing Hub inside of USCAN. So Rev, you were one of those folks. We were individuals who represented member groups of USCAN. So as individuals, we came together, about 15 of us, to kind of decide what was needed in this moment. We were able to learn elements of movements from the past, what worked and what didn't. And what we decided right now is that we need to center racial and economic justice in this climate movement. Had we done that decades ago, we wouldn't be where we are still, on the brink of death, right? So, and here we are. So we came up with Arm in Arm.
Great. And I'm going to have to tell my daughter that you're a graduate of Howard, that has been her dream school.
Bison, one and only.
Yeah, Bison said she was in high school, and in a couple of months she's going to be starting working on her PhD at Howard.
Okay.
Yeah, she had to go through several different schools, but she finally got to where she wanted to be. So she's gonna love to meet another alumni from Howard.
Yes, and congratulations to you and to your family and to her. That's awesome news.
Oh yes. She's I guess a chip off the old block. I don't know which one, her mom or me, or she says a little bit of both. But let's talk about USCAN. USCAN is a different type of organization, and we both have worked with a lot of different organizations. But let's talk about what USCAN, what they're about, what kind of groups their membership consists of, and what I really find unique about USCAN, and I have to be transparent. I'm on the board of directors, but one of the things I love is the way how USCAN is guided by its member organizations, how the member organizations make the decisions in terms of what direction the organization will be headed in. And can you talk about that a little bit about USCAN, which is the mother to Arm in Arm?
Yeah, sure. So for me, my first entry into US Climate Action Network was as Georgia WAN, as a voting member. Georgia One is one of, I think they're up to 180 member organizations, and every year USCAN comes together and does an annual meeting. Participants vote on what they want to work on throughout the year, and then you meet throughout the year, you work on stuff, and then the next year you vote on what you want to work on together. And so my entry was as a member organization. It's really interesting now that I'm on the inside of USCAN and really being able to see how the gears work. USCAN really was my entry into, so I learned grassroots work at Georgia One, but it was really doing it on a larger scale, decision making together,
Mhm.
working through issues together, incorporating, different faith traditions, ages, regions, energy issues, water issues, but really wanting to make sure that no one gets left behind and that everyone is heard.
Mhm.
Doing it, they're so efficient. My goodness, really incredible systems. And I think that that's one of the really added benefits that USCAN brings into this climate space for smaller organizations or grassroots organizations is efficient systems that allow you to move things through to fruition and to decision making and end products versus getting caught up or not having enough to do this or not having enough direction or capacity or content. And I found and I continue to find that the work that USCAN is doing and then the way that they're doing really is transformative. People get to know one another, and that at the end of the day, you can't get around it. I know folks want to, but you can't. The only way
Yeah.
we're going to win this is getting to know each other one relationship at a time. It's just that simple. And you just have to do it. And USCAN is set up to do that. And so, working with people through work groups, and subcommittees, again,
Mhm.
coming up with a vision for equitable climate action policy platform that USCAN came up with that I think is a real true illustration of teamwork. Um,
Mhm.
from the ground up, from membership up, and really providing a framework for how its just transition could move forward and the things to consider.
Mhm.
Um, I'm really proud of USCAN. I came in at 2017. It's 2021 now. And to see that groups are now more aligned than they were, how many years is
Mhm.
that? 4 years ago?
4 years ago.
Yeah. The groups are more aligned. People, even through a pandemic, and even though we've had virtual annual meetings, people are still maintaining their connections. There's been a lot of policy movement, a lot of things have been happening through 2020 and through 2021, and people have been maintaining, even with all the difficulty, making sure we're talking to each other, making sure that people aren't left out of conversations. I see a lot of grassroots folks who are in high level policy conversations and really leading international spaces, and that's
Mhm.
how you get this work done. And I feel that USCAN really does a nice job of illustrating that. And so when I explain to people what Arm in Arm is, I tell people it's kind of like the strong arm of USCAN. So Arm in Arm is fiscally sponsored by USCAN, which is a 501c3, and US Must, which is
Mhm.
the C4 arm of USCAN. So Arm in Arm is fiscally sponsored by both. And so, what we're looking to do is to move folks from USCAN. There are already folks who are very much involved and bought into and engaged in Arm in Arm, and we want to move uh, the rest of the USCAN membership to also be engaged as well. I mean, Rev, you were there. The organizing hub, which helped to develop Arm in Arm, decided that the only way we were going to win is we need to organize our communities to ignite a transformational era, ending the climate crisis, centering racial and economic justice. We're not just out here to be having meetings. We're not just out
Mhm.
here to be, on the phone with we need to be having action in the streets, people building our bases to support the then policies that we want to get passed. So much energy has been put on the policy. So that's great. That's fantastic. But people can't vote, first of all, because they're putting all these voting laws in place where people can't participate. You know what I'm saying? And then people may
Mhm.
not be educated about it because they can't pay for their energy bills. There are all of these layers that happen before you get support to a major policy that's really going to change people's lives. And so,
Mhm.
I mentioned the Vision for Equitable Climate Action before. There are multiple other policy platforms out there that exist, but the level of change that is needed to save lives and to put this country on a course for success and not destruction is really truly transformative. And it's not going to happen in DC. It's going to happen at our kitchen tables. It's going to happen on our stoops. It's going to happen at our mailboxes. We have to be talking to each other as to why we have to center racial and economic justice and why it's the only way to win.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so Arm in Arm actually people the Arm in Arm is has organizing hubs throughout the country. And so actually folks are engaged in direct action. They do things around the country. And can you give us like some examples of some of the things that people are doing? So it's not just about talking, it's about engaging with your neighbors, organizing in your community, talking with policymakers, but also, like you said, being that strong arm down in the community where you lift up voices and you take action. So, how about you share some of that? What some of the hubs are doing, where the hubs are organized? How can people get involved with some of the training that is being offered?
Sure. And let me also give a little bit more detail as to why I call Arm in Arm the strong arm of US CAN. I say that because Arm in Arm is C4 work. I want to be very clear about that. When we fundraise for C4 dollars because you can spend C4 dollars on C3 activities, but you can't spend C3 $4 on C4 activities. And so to give ourselves the most flexibility, we focus on fundraising for C4. However, our C3 activities, we also offer training to folks. So let me back up and share just a little bit about some of the fundamental elements of Arm in Arm. So our theory of change is that we want to drive a wedge between our opposition and their supporters. Because remember, we want to ignite a transformational era that ends the climate crisis, centering racial and economic justice. Okay, so how are we going to ignite that? Well, we want to drive a wedge. We have way too many people who are either neutral on climate, who are opposed for various different reasons, even though 100% of the people on the planet are impacted by climate. And that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we spoke about in the Arm in Arm story, broadening the we, so that more people see themselves, one, as being impacted by climate, and most importantly, being a part of the solution to how we overcome it. And so, so the way that we want to drive a wedge between our opposition and their supporters is through acts of disruptive humanitarianism. Acts of disruptive humanitarianism.
Now, what is that? What is destructive humanitarianism?
Big word.
Those seem to be two contradictory terms.
No, to this day, I still can't say or type either one accurately. First, but what it means, what's most important, what it means is you're essentially getting someone what they need in a community, but you're doing it in a way that highlights how the current system is violent and allowed for something to be wrong in the first place. The example I always give is Guerrilla Gardens. Here in the city of Atlanta, we have food deserts, as I'm sure you have in many other places. These are areas where there's literally no fresh food. You have to get on the freeway to get to a grocery store, okay, like in some parts of Atlanta. And so in this particular part of Atlanta, the closest place to get food is a BP gas station down the street. So, if there's a vacant, if you were to find something that's, close or just, had an open lot, there's nothing in it, well, let's go and let's plant some food in there. Now we're assuming that Atlanta Police Department or somebody's going to come by and have an outsized response to the fact that you're planting food in an abandoned lot. And the idea is, one, you're planting food. There is no food. So you're planting the food. But then you're also, when the cops come and they're going to act a fool, you're gonna say, okay, so why is it illegal for us to plant food? However, what was here before wasn't illegal and wasn't doing anything for anyone, right? We're trying to illuminate the absurdity, right? I mean, our systems don't work for us. They are violent, they are keeping us down, they are hurting us, and they don't give us what we need. So Arm in Arm gives us an opportunity to participate and to begin to practice and then to demand the world that we deserve and that we want to see. And so the training that I mentioned to you earlier is to really help people understand what acts of disruptive humanitarianism could be. It may look different where you are, as long as you commit to the Arm in Arm values and principles. You can utilize the Arm in Arm vehicle to kind of have a conversation, a customized conversation where you are as to the ridiculous local issues. It could be this area that floods all the time, and the kids got to cross the street every day. I mean, there are a myriad of things you could do. There's always a place that a river that has storm debris. You take that debris and you go put it on the front door of an elected official's office and put a signage on it. It's like, do something about our trash and we trash your
Mhm.
office. I mean, there are different ways you can be disruptive, but that's the idea. It's C4 activity. You are not necessarily, things may not be all lawful, and that's to be understood, but the idea is this is a movement theory. We're trying to get people off the fence, off their couches, to draw a line in the sand and to make this a polarized issue. Climate needs to be polarized. You need to have an opinion about climate. Either you love it or you hate it. That is our goal. We have too many neutrals, and so we want to polarize it. So that's what we're out here to do.
Yeah, right. I often say to members of USCAN that climate delayers are just as bad as climate deniers. You're either on one side or on the other side. There really is no effective, transformative way to be neutral.
And we don't have time, Rev.
Yeah.
We do not have time for neutral.
Mhm.
Man, there's a sense of urgency.
We're behind now, right?
We started behind. We've been behind. We've been behind for so long. So long. So anyway,
Yeah.
you can get me on my soapbox in a minute.
No, that's all right. That's why it's the call. We want you to call out those who don't do the right things and call people out of their homes and out of their schools so that they can be involved in this transformative movement that's going on not only in this country but in the world. And you mentioned how grassroots community, everyday community folks can weigh in on the high level, globally at the United Nations, COP and other events, and how USCAN is actually a part or a node of a Climate Action Network International, which is 1,300 organizations in 120 countries. So it's wonderful, if you can talk about the intersectional pieces as well. I know, we were fortunate to be in Arusha, Tanzania with Climate Action Network International, and they actually look towards what USCAN and what Arm in Arm is doing and how effective that could be not only in US communities, but in communities around the world. And you touched on a point that, that you might, want to elaborate or I think has tentacles, reaches in other directions too, that we're bringing people together around issues in their local communities and the state and things that people can identify are part of a problem. Like you said, cleaning up the trash. I mean, how many people would disagree with cleaning up the trash in our rivers, right?
Right. I mean, I think that, thinking about the global South, thinking about the global South, the American South, for whatever reason, for all the reasons, there are similarities in the South. And also that those same Southern regions have also been left out of decision-making processes for a really long time. And here we are. Here is the result of that, the current state of our world. So I think that Arm in Arm really gives a model, a scalable model. That's the idea. It's a distributed organizing model And I think that it is a model that can be scaled. The point is for us to scale it here nationally, but the idea of folks on the ground being subject matter experts of their own communities, knowing what they need and the conversations that need to be had in order to get folks off the fence, is in the people who are on the ground. These are grassroots folks. These are frontline folks. And so, again, the model of Arm in Arm, the model of how USCAN uplifts its members to be in leadership positions in international spaces about conversations, bringing frontline and grassroots folks together across the nation, across the world. Again, it's not just the what, but it's the how. So, you know, the best way to figure out how to connect Global South folks is to get Global South folks in the room and ask them how to do it. And so I feel that, you know, USCAN is playing its part in that, and that a tool. So I see, you know, USCAN as a platform and Arm in Arm is like a tool, you know, to then implement the things that you have identified collectively. And now you have more resources and people to have a big conversation and to deliver a need, to deliver, you know, something that people need, to make a point. I mean, we're looking to recreate the images, the iconic images of the lunch counters, you know, during the civil rights movement, during Gandhi's Salt March. I mean, when you look at these images, like, how can you possibly disagree with a garden? How can you possibly, I mean, like, come on, guys. That's what we're out here to do. We have to polarize the issue.
Yes, that, you know, like I said, the Guerrilla Garden is such a, and I hope that folks who are watching think about that technique. I mean, wow, the Lord's going to say to you that this land that has nothing but weeds and trash and debris, that you shouldn't disrupt that to plant food, you know, on a patch of land in an area where people don't have access to fresh produce. How could that possibly be wrong or illegal? But it points to the absurdity of the system that we have in this country and around the world that is primarily extractive. You know, what can we pull out? You know, the resources, the oil, the minerals, the resources, you know, just extractive. And what I like about Arm in Arm and USCAN also is that it's not extractive. And you know, real talk is that we have some organizations that they just show up in communities to extract their story and extract the work that they're doing, and then form this alliance and then present and tell other people's stories, and they get funded and everything goes down to the community. But USCAN and Arm in Arm actually, rather than extracting resources from the community, provides resources to the community. So maybe you can share with folks how USCAN shares resources through re-granting, and also our Arm in Arm also provides resources for grassroots groups that want to take direct action in their community.
Yeah, sure. And actually, I realized that one question you asked me that I didn't answer was how folks can get involved in Arm in Arm, and involvement and engagement is also tied to money. So, but I'll just say that so our model is an act, recruit, train cycle, right? We do actions, then we recruit people, and then we get them trained so they can understand the Arm in Arm DNA, story, strategy, and structure. We're also very, very much into cultivating a culture of anti-racism. It's another line in the sand that we're drawing. Being not racist is not a thing. You are either anti-racist or you are enjoying a system of white supremacy and you are racist. That is how we're riding with this. And so cultivating a culture of anti-racism is a huge, huge piece of our work, and is another differentiator from many other organizations and movements in this space. And then we also have some nonviolent direct action training, again, right? Because we want people to be doing actions. And so we want people to attend trainings. We need help, volunteers for texting, you know, for getting folks to the next training, to the next event. You know, we have calls monthly where we ask people to come in, we break out by region. We were also breaking out, like if you need any coaching for any activities you think that you might want to do as well. And I'll also say that we also have a summer season of actions that we're doing. So we just finished doing line 3 pipeline activity in Minnesota in June. We stood in solidarity with Indigenous folks in the area who had been fighting against private industry in that area for a long time. And so we stood in solidarity. We got buses from 3 different cities to the area, which is great. So for July, we're having American Energy Independence Day in the South, for the Southeast region. We're going to be doing an action here in Atlanta. That's going to be probably, we said July 18th and 19th. In August, we're doing another action around the Mountain Valley Pipeline. That's going to be August 7th through the 10th. And then in September, we're going to be doing something around no coal, no gas. And so I say all that to say that there will be multiple opportunities for folks to get involved, take a training, join a hub, join an action, recruit some other folks, and fundraising. Not everybody can go out into the street. I personally am not someone who I'm not looking to get arrested, right? And the idea is that not everybody wants to get arrested. I think that's really important. It's really important because just like if a disaster happens somewhere and you're out of the state, how can you still support? If you are someone who's not necessarily trying to get pepper spray, but you still want to support, there have to be ways for people to engage, and Arm in Arm offers that as well, because fundraising is engaging too. This stuff is going to cost money. So if you can't go out, but you got a couple dollars, $1, $2, $5, $10, $15, all of that matters. All of that matters. So let me just put that on the table. And then you had asked me, wait, remind me, you had asked me to go back and talk about, was it the international stuff? Remind me, please.
Yeah, some of it was the international stuff. Now you got me caught up in the direct action piece.
Sorry. I just wanted to make sure. I know. I remember what it was. So going back to the money. So sometimes it takes money for folks to be able to attend a training. You may be, gas money, or, maybe taking hours off of work, right? Or childcare. So we offer stipends for people to engage. We are, the fundraising is another way for people to engage. Like, for instance, we're going to be getting a bus from Birmingham to come to Atlanta for July. We're going to be having a bus from South Carolina to come. So like, if you can't get on that bus, but you can help us raise money to pay for that bus, we appreciate you. So those are the kinds of things we're talking about. So that's how folks can get involved in Arm in Arm. I mentioned to you earlier that we're looking to get more folks in USCAN also engage in Arm in Arm. And so this is not directly connected, but as far as funding goes, Arm in Arm is USCAN, U.S. Climate Action Network, is very much into funding frontline folks to really decide how the money should be spent. I mean, there's a whole membership grants process, but it's membership driven. The USCAN board is led by members. The membership grants, people who make the decision on who gets grants, is led by members. All of the action groups are led by members. So that is the model. And so that, again, model of member driven, the same in Arm in Arm. The people decide what the target should be, what the action should be, and then we can rally around to support. And so those are common elements in both of those spaces that I've seen work. So I'm really excited about the opportunity as we continue to scale, because let me just say this one thing. So we are working on an arc here with Arm in Arm. We spent last year training and building the base, getting our training program down pat. This year we're doing rising actions and trigger events. We're doing actions at the scale of like a Standing Rock or a No Dakota Access Pipeline. Just like the Line 3 action, that's going to be one of 7 that we're going to be doing throughout the year in each of our regions. The reason we're doing that is because we're trying to practice, because next year we want to do it all together in moments of unity as a nation. So for instance, this is the example that we give. So let's say there's a piece of legislation that comes down the pipeline. We're like, this is the one we want. They need to pass this thing. Let's just say a senator from Florida is like, I don't know. We can all say, you know what? We're not buying oranges from Florida. These are the kinds of large moments of civil disobedience, boycotts, moments of unity that we're building towards, and then we'll win. And then we will reorganize and kind of figure out what our next grand strategic objective will be for 2023. Our grand strategic objective now is igniting a transformational era, ending the climate crisis, centering racial and economic justice. Once we've done that, we need to figure out what the next phase is.
Right.
So
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you explained that to people that when the strategy was put together for Arm and Arm, it actually is like you said, it's recruitment, it's doing action, recruiting people, training people, having people take participate in acts of destructive humanitarianism, but then also move on the national level,
Mhm.
to move on the national level, and to bring all of these groups together to take direct action, to do to work together in 2023.
Yes. And
And
again, I want to be clear on our scope.
mm,
We're ending the climate crisis. The crisis. We
mm,
can't end all the climate change, but we can stop the bleeding. So let us do that.
mm,
And then we can move on to the next phase. I just want to be
right,
clear.
right. So yeah, it's ending what you said, the bleeding, the hemorrhaging, and there's so many things that are, what I'm glad about is that we've seen progress.
Mhm.
Not progress as broad and as quickly as it should have happened, but we've seen progress, and now people are actually talking about solutions. How do we stop the hemorrhaging? How do we move away from fossil fuel based economy? How do we make sure that when we talk about charging stations and electric vehicles, that we're not just doing them on the interstate highways for the tractor trailer trucks, or just in communities where people are privileged and can afford to purchase them, but how do we also create a pathway for low wealth communities and people of color communities to also participate in this transformation? And that's part of stopping the hemorrhaging and starting the process of implementing community-led climate solutions. And so people, I'm glad you explained that, so people don't see everything as just separate acts, or separate acts, but instead see that this thing is building to a national, and I dare say international level of unity, where people are going to be taking action simultaneously across this country and around the world. And we've already seen some of that with the student climate strikes and that, and some of those things, right?
And as my mentor would say, it's already done. It's already done.
Already done, right? Yeah. Okay, so what where do you see, and I know this isn't, we talked a little bit about the Biden administration, and what they're saying in terms of dealing with infrastructure and dealing with climate and dealing with racism and particularly environmental justice. Um, and I know this will be your opinion, what do you think we should do? What is important that we do while we're at this particular place and time? When there's a lot of opportunities, how do we make sure that those opportunities happen? And you mentioned the C4.
Mhm.
So, 2022, I keep telling folks, 2022 can make or break the process that we have going on. And so a lot of that is C4. Some of it is C3, getting out the vote, but some of it is C4 too. And I just want to know if you had any thoughts along those lines in terms of possible federal opportunities, but also possible obstacles coming in during the midterms, and how important it is that we make sure things don't become obstructed or turned around in literally the next 16 to 18 months.
I know, Rev. I just think about, I mean, and being here in Georgia, and then we were two through after the Senate election, and then it was just like, how could the stakes possibly be even higher? But they are in 2022. It's like it's just it's all over again. And so it's like after we won the Senate election, I felt like we were starting page one on the next 12, book saga. Um, and I say that because I know that there are others in movement who are feeling fatigue as well. Rev, you've been at this for a long time. My mom, has been at this for a long time, and understanding this really, this is a long game, and there is a baton to be passed, and this is a really important moment. Oh, it hasn't looked like this in a really long time, and so it's hard because it's like, it's encouraging because there are people in the administration that I'm familiar with that actually have a voice at the table. So for that, I'm like, okay, that's a win. There are words being said in the mouths of the administration that I have not heard before across, the breadth of the entire administration. Okay, that's also very that's a good thing. But all that being said, I mean, there's no doubt that Biden has been talking a whole hell of a lot more to Republicans and conservatives and making sure that they feel okay and they don't feel left behind versus the things that, he campaigned on and the folks that got him in office. Come on now. Anyway, excuse me. So there's definitely some conversation. There's a balance between definitely wanting to put pressure on Biden and the Democrats, and at the same time, because I said it before, we cannot turn away from the grassroots frontline fights that are happening. So there's a delicate balance. And so I will say what I have seen are real intentional, thoughtful conversations being had, groups trying to figure out who's really good on the inside game and on the outside game, and how do you make sure that the inside game and the policy and the federal level is talking to and being informed by the frontline stuff, and that there's also a lot of support and capacity being put behind the grassroots folks to make that national conversation more relevant, right? So it's not just, oh, Biden. It's not all about Biden. We got a lot of stuff on the ground. We got nuclear power plant Vogtle here. I mean, there's Mountain Valley Pipeline. You got Line 3. You got Byhalia Pipeline. I mean, it's we have an opportunity, but the road is far from paved before us.
Yes, it's a delicate balance. And then, I've heard people talk about the first Reconstruction, which, got knocked off the rails after the Civil War. And then some people call the Civil Rights Movement the second Reconstruction, trying to restructure America and how things happen. And we got after the Kings and the LBJs, and then we got a shift away from that. And so it's you kind of look at the progress that's being made, but then you see on the other side, it appears to be attempts to derail things again. Voter suppression laws, that sort of thing. So there's so many moving pieces going on right now that we have to bring more people in. There's no way that the people who are involved and active now can cover all these different aspects of what's going on. There's a movement going on in this country, but there's a parallel movement that wants to keep things the way they are, or in fact turn back the clock. And so that's why Arm in Arm is so important, because recruitment and bringing in more people, we cannot win without bringing in masses of people.
And let me offer you this also, Rev, because it's another important distinction, because people need to feel as though they have a place and that we can win. This is not a losing movement. That's what Reverend Durley always says. No one wants to join a losing movement.
That's right.
Yeah, but Arm in Arm is for folks 35 and up.
Mm-hmm.
Young folks know what's up, Rev. They know the deal.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is that they can't do the work by themselves. It can't just be Sunrise and not one more out there fighting against. It's got to be folks like myself, yourself, who have economic stake in the game. Have property. Have some kind of economic power, more so of it, can really wield and yield that in a way, to make some real change. And so it's not to exclude folks who are under 35, but it's being very clear that folks above 35 need a pathway to leadership. They need a place to plug in too. And you don't have to join an organization, but if you see something down the street and needs to be done, you can do it with arm in arm and without all the extra stuff. It's for the moms, the dads, the aunts, the grandparents of the folks in Sunrise.
Right.
So it's our arm in arms for everybody, and we're definitely intergenerational, but we're definitely a place for folks who are 35 and up. So come join us. We can win, and we need you to do it.
And we will. And tell us, because we're coming to the close, but tell us how people can contact you and how they can become involved with Arm in Arm. Give us, some emails, some, website, that people can plug into.
Sure. So you can start by going to our website. So it's Arm in Arm for Climate. That's arm like an arm, ARM, INARM, the number 4, the word climate.org. You can start there. You can read our Arm in Arm story, which I think is a great entryway to really understand what we're trying to achieve and why. You can also sign up for a training. Make sure you sign up for our Arm in Arm pledge. You'll see that there on the website as well. You can also make a donation on the website. You can also get merch on the website. Get your little hat, get your little shirt or something, get your little sign. And so that's Arm in Arm, the number 4, climate.org. You can also check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Arm in Arm for Climate. And our next training is actually July 30th. So there's a little bit of time, but we will definitely expect to see folks there. And of course, I can send these links to you to also remind you about our upcoming summer season of actions and escalations.
Yes, and what are those dates and places again?
Oh, and let me also give you my email address. So again, my name is Lindsay Harper. And you can email me at operations with an S, operations at Arm in Arm for Climate. And again, that's Arm in Arm, the number 4, climate.org. You can also shoot me a text if you are so inclined, 404-919-4862. 404-919-4862. And again, we will be in Atlanta, July 18th and 19th. We will be, I'm not sure what the city is quite yet, but it will be around the Mountain Valley Pipeline. That will be August 7th through the 10th. We will also be doing some activities in the Northeast in September. I'm not quite sure, don't have dates yet, but that's going to be around No Coal, No Gas.
It made me think of a chant when you said the first time, no coal, no gas, no biomass.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we coming back around for that biomass, and we're coming back for Duke. We coming back. Don't worry about that. We will be focusing on. We start with Southern Company in Atlanta, but we come around to Duke. Don't you NNV, but don't you worry, we're coming.
It's a national thing. Yeah. So thank you so much, Lindsay Harper, for being our guest on this week's episode of The Call. And we just want to always remind our viewers that this program calls you to direct action, to advocacy, to working on policy change, educating in your community, doing whatever you can to make change on the local level, to the state and national level, and globally, so we can change our world. Have a great time until we see you again on the next edition of The Call. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are tired but inspired, fired up and on the